everybody, and welcome back to a very not so spooky, but always terrific Nextlander podcast. We don't want to be scary here. There's enough scary things going on. But it is Halloween. Alex Navarro, how are you?
I mean, I want to be fun scary. I want to be the kind of scary you can get into, not the kind that is real.
What's a fun scary? Exactly.
Just a guy in a sheet yelling boo? I don't know.
Look, I've read history. That could be extremely scary.
Okay, yeah, no, you're right. But you cut the eyes out. It's a whole body sheet, and it's like it's a ghost.
Yeah,
I'm
you said
saying,
enough. No, you got it. You got it. Yeah, no, I get it. Brad
All
Shoemaker.
Right. Hello.
Happy Halloween.
Can we be creepy, kooky, mysterious, spooky, altogether ooky?
I don't want to be.
I can be 4 of those 5 things.
Yeah,
okay.
No ookies allowed here. So it is Halloween. Disclaimer: Halloween here in the suburbs. There is apparently a DJ across the street. If you hear that noise, there's a DJ across the street.
What?
One more time.
DJ across the street.
All right, scariest thing you can think of. There it is.
They're having like a little party, or not party, but they're doing some
like
fun stuff across the street. What's that?
Like a block party?
No, in their driveway. But
like a driveway party?
Driveway party. Like a little celebration there. That is across the street. If you hear any Thumpin and Rumpin, that is from, I apologize for that. Also, there'll be trick-or-treaters, I'm sure.
Okay, I know what thumping is. What is rumping?
You think about it long enough, you'll know. You when you hear it, you're going to know.
Oh.
And they will have trick-or-treaters, doorbells ringing, I'm sure, at some point. And
I can't stop thinking about it now.
Rumpin?
Yeah.
It's Rumpin' good time. That's
this is gonna haunt me.
It's Halloween. Something's got to haunt you.
Yeah. Might as well be the Rumpin'.
So we're gonna
go out and rump tonight.
When you hear a rump in the night.
Rump, a good old rump roast. Those comedy rump roasts.
If this van is thumping, don't come a rumping.
Those are all legitimate T-shirt / bumper sticker ideas. We're going to talk about some video games. Also, heads up.
Let's just talk about this.
Let's talk about Rumpin'.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Alan Wake 2. Fairly non-spoilery, but again, if you're just kind of getting into Alan Wake 2, I think all of us are still near the beginning of that game or the intro to that game. I don't know how long that game is, but fairly non-spoiler commentary there, I suspect. And then, at the end of our video game conversation, we'll be talking about Marvel's Spider-Man 2 Marvels, in which we will be getting into spoiler stuff, and we'll denote that before we get into it. But I just want to say up at the front here, if you have not finished Spider-Man 2 or you are sensitive to the spoilers in Spider-Man 2, you're going to want to skip that conversation.
Which will be a very scary podcast for you.
Extremely. At the end of our video game conversation, so heads up before the news. Skip into the news if that's what you're into. Other than that, we talked a lot on our Ramblecast about some Halloween and scary stuff, so you can go catch that over on patreon.com/Nextlander. But just to sum up, Brad, scariest movie you watched during the holiday season for folks who haven't listened to the Ramblecast?
Gosh, scariest?
Yeah, what spooked you the most?
What's the best recommendation for scary?
Talk to Me probably was the most disturbing.
Okay.
Slash best.
Okay. We talk a lot about that on the Ramblecast. Alex, you got one movie recommendation here for folks, just throwing out there while we're just, because you've watched a lot of
I've got 5 because we just did a whole Watchcast series of films. So if you haven't had a chance to catch up on those, maybe check out Ghost Watch from the UK, or The Babadook from Australia, or Suspiria, the original or the remake. We talk about that too. And then you want some good Asian horror. What about Houseu and Train to Busan? I don't know.
If we're roping the Watchcast stuff in, I think I watched as many horror movies this weekend as we did for the month of October. I think I started to say Train to Busan might be the best of all of everything I've watched.
Ooh,
it's very good.
Well, if you want to watch any of those movies that we just mentioned, or that Alex just mentioned, you can watch them and then join our fine commentary over on the Watchcast. It's like watching it all together, but separately, and then talking about it later. That's over on the, again, patreon.com/Nextlander, all of that fine stuff. But let's get into the Alan Wake before the doorbell starts ringing and the real treats and tricks begin to fly in.
Yeah.
Alan Wake 2.
It would be very Alan Wake 2 if the doorbell rang and you went up there and it was you.
Yep. Yep. That's me, Mr. Itchy.
Except in a suit. It was like you, but in a suit.
Mr. They call him Mr. Scratch.
Mr. Scratch.
But
Mr. Scratch. I had to go watch a video. I don't know about you guys. I watched a 12-minute IGN video of Sam Lake recapping the entire story so far.
Oh, I need to go do that
yes, you should do that.
Because I feel like I'm not sure if they're making stuff up or there's stuff I missed.
Yeah, it should be easy to find. Just Google like IGN Sam Lake, Alan Wake recap or something. But,
okay.
Like, yeah, I could not remember what Scratch was, who Mr. Scratch was, despite having played American Nightmare when it came out. Like, there's a lot in this.
Yeah.
I didn't remember.
So Alan Wake 2, it's out now. It's $50. And there's like a special edition, I think, for an extra $20 that gets you some skins, maybe an extra charm, which we'll get to in just a minute here. Available, I think, exclusive on the Epic Game Store on the PC and then PS5 and Xbox Series X and S.
Yes, probably a permanent Epic exclusive.
Yeah, they put money into that one.
Epic published it; they funded it, so it probably is not coming to Steam ever. I did not realize it was $50.
$50, and then we should probably mention on the PC side, fairly steep requirements there. That's been the topic of conversation.
Yeah, yes and no. Like yes, but also it turned out to be PC gamers fucking getting super angry about something they didn't actually have their hands on again. It turned out the game scales way better to lesser graphics cards than people thought it would.
Yeah, and a lot of options in there too to enable or disable the things that you want. But we played a little bit of this on Friday, and let's just talk about the game for a bit. You kind of start off as Saga, the FBI agent who is running around with Alex Casey, who is modeled after Sam Lake and voiced by Max Payne. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. What is the voice actor's name? I knew this.
Don't remember off the top of my head.
I love that voice actor. Like, I mean, James McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was always very recognizable from Max Payne. I feel like he's gotten some more grumpy old man punch to his delivery in this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's great. He's great in this.
So
yes.
So just to kind of set the table here, Saga, who's the FBI agent's partner, another FBI agent, is modeled after the head of the studio, Sam Lake.
Yes, he's got the face of Sam Lake.
Voiced by another character that they don't necessarily have the rights to in Max Payne.
They do not know.
Yeah,
Take-Two owns Max Payne.
For all intents and purposes, sounds like maybe Alex Casey, a character from Alan Wake's book, might just be kind of Max Payne.
This game's meta as fuck. I mean, like the first game. Fuck, man, I don't even know where to start. Like the first game is like a pretty straightforward, like living nightmare horror thing. You know, it's like the nightmare realm, the dark place is merging with reality. Like what's real? Alan's stuck in the lake now. It's all spooky. But this feels like full on Kojima, basically far in the amount of like self-reference and weird meta layers of things going on.
I think it's a little more coherent than Kojima stuff.
It's better Kojima.
But to me it feels like they took what was really fun about Control's what are AEW's AWEs?
Altered world events.
Yeah, they took what was like really fun and interesting about Control's universe and now have merged Alan Wake and Control's bananas events together in a way that feels like the train is barely keeping on the tracks, but in a kind of good way so far. In a way that keeps me not knowing where this whole thing is going. Or feels like the characters often don't know, and Saga starts the game out, again, she's the FBI agent you play as, with this ability to kind of preternaturally deduce things from looking at people or being inside her, for all intents and purposes, mind palace, her mind place.
So much amazing writing in this game. We talked about this when I played that preview last month, you know, like you warp to like this log cabin in her head to do crime solving detective shit. Literally, when like the first line of dialogue in there, the mind place, my version of the mind palace technique. It's like you knew people were going to be getting that wrong constantly, so there you go.
So she has this ability, which is not really explained, or at least up until the point of where I am, of why she can kind of intuit facts from a conversation that really, it's not like she's Sherlock Holmesing something like, oh, a piece of sand on their shoulder or like a stray hair. That must mean that no, she just kind of goes in there and does this profiling mechanic in the game where she's like, no, I should ask them about this charm.
Yeah, she's straight up just having visions of things.
Yeah. In addition to that, inside the mind place, you do have this rather kind of a lofty mechanic of corkboarding stuff. I think, Brad, you also mentioned this during your preview event, where you're taking these people, places, things, and putting them on a board and kind of connecting them in a way that drives the story forward. It's really, I feel like, its main mechanic in the saga parts to kind of just give you your next objective, right? That's beyond that. I'm not really sure in Saga's case what that's doing.
I mean, it's literal yarn and Polaroids and note cards type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if she were not an actual detective, like, this would look like some conspiracy theory shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or like, I feel like in the detective procedurals I've seen, they do this on the whiteboard with the photos, right?
Yes.
This happen, maybe less fewer thumbtacks and fewer pieces of yarn. So that's, Saga's got a pistol or a firearm, and I got a very missable shotgun at some point. Thank you, Brad. And the flashlight mechanic is there to kind of zap the baddies pull them from the dark place, let's say, into reality, which feels probably the most similar from Alan Wake previous.
Yeah,
games.
it's full on. Use the flashlight to burn the darkness off the lumberjack bad guys, so you can shoot them. You still have battery packs you need to find to recharge the flashlight. All that stuff is still there. But the combat is way harder, and there seems like less of it so far, and it's way harder.
You both as Alan Wake, you switch perspectives at some point, but both as Alan Wake and Saga are extremely fragile at the top of this game. There are some upgrades you can get and some mechanics that make it a little bit easier, but so when you take a hit, when you go down past a certain level of health initially, you can only regain, I think it's probably not more than 25% of your health bar max, unless you use a healing item. So if you are at that 25%, I'd say you got maybe 2 hits, sometimes 1 hit, and you're dead. And so you have to be very careful. And I've been healing a lot more since I learned that. Like, I've just been trying to top my health off because it's very dark. Mm-hmm. Things jump out at you pretty regularly if you're in a dangerous situation. You can get blindsided just very easily.
Yeah.
And go down. And I'm going to get into the thing, which is probably my biggest gripe with the game, is the checkpointing and saving is pretty rough where it is now. I don't know if that's something they'll change later on or how they change it or do. It's kind of manual or quick saves at certain points and destinations, which are fairly spread out and far between. But say you hit a quick save or a save point, go out, do a bunch of collectible stuff, which there is a fair amount of, and then just die randomly. You will start back at that save point without any of those things checked off your list and kind of have to remember to do them again or go through all the cutscenes you did again, which leads to situations that I'm finding myself in where I'll backtrack to a save point after I've done a bunch of stuff and just pop off a quick save just because it's happened enough times where I'm like, all right, I'll just do the 3-minute run back to this thing and just go save.
Yeah, I learned a very harsh lesson. It was in the woods right after where we stopped streaming on Friday, like right after Alan is in the picture. You then go on to spend quite a bit more time in those woods directly after that you just spent a lot of time in. But
even more time. I think there's a environment change which allows you to explore more.
Yeah, it's not the same woods. They open up more of them, so there's a lot of new stuff to explore actually. But yeah, man, I had a ton of Polaroids built up from different evidence I had collected that I was like, I should pop in here and fill out this case board stuff. Then I also spent a lot of time going through all the items and like fiddling with the quick slot stuff, getting all the healing and ammo and everything exactly where I want it. Because the combat, it's not easy. Like the enemies close the distance on you. Like they can like dash right up on you. Yep. Like you're just kind of slow and plotting, and the enemies are not, and they hit hard, and et cetera, et cetera.
And they soak up a lot of ammo, like especially if you're trying to hit those headshots, they do their zombie weave, which can be tough.
Thankfully, they drop a lot of ammo so far in my experience. I don't know if that changes, but they've it's been dropping a surprising number of bullets because I think this would be unplayable otherwise.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did all this procedural stuff and then fucking died and lost like 20 minutes of putting Polaroids on the wall and arranging my quick slots and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, not doing that again. Like never putting time into that stuff again unless I'm right before save.
Yeah, and that also has happened to me a few times. Maybe the more regular thing that happens is I will save and then I'll go through narrative stuff, sometimes unskippable narrative stuff, into a fight that I die on, and then I kind of have to reload, do the thing again, and then pop these narratives again, right? And it just adds a level of frustration. It feels a little antiquated, I'd say. I guess it feels very kind of old school, where you're like, oh, a lot of games don't do this anymore. A lot of games will keep your collectibles even if you die and just kind of revert your physical progression back to that thing, or when you get a collectible, it's just checked off on some other save mechanic.
Yeah, I feel like they're leaning harder into a slightly older style of survival horror thing, but also I don't know that completely works for what they are trying to do narratively. Not because I don't think, the game should be hard or anything, but it's just like with the way stuff checkpoints, with the way, like you said, sometimes the narrative can be delivered multiple times if you're struggling with it. Like, I think some of the limitations they are putting on you are maybe not the smartest way if you want people to really digest that story.
Control had checkpointing issues with the nature of that place.
That's the thing, is it had issues too. Yeah. And like I understand it's another case where I understand what they were going for, which in Control's case was a little bit more of like a Metroidvania style thing, but I just don't think it benefits necessarily like a smooth experience with what they're trying to do.
The other place that kind of and again, it's the same thing. It's the saving and the checkpointing that causes some friction. Is it can be hard to know when to put the controller down and turn it off, because there are large chunks where you're just between physical manual saves, and the checkpointing, it does the little circle in the corner to be like, hey, I'm saving. But if you weren't paying attention and then suddenly you haven't seen one in 10 minutes, you're like, oh man, I got to find a save room or just hit some event that's going to trigger this.
The easiest thing to do is pause and go to load, and you can see it'll show the autosaves there, so you can see, and they're time stamped. It'll be like last saved 9 minutes ago, so you can see if it's checkpointed recently there.
Okay. Because I remember I was playing and I was like, oh, I just got to get to a point here. Give me something. And there can be stretches. So for the most part, Saga kind of is wandering around in the woods in the beginning of the game. She's kind of unlocking some power-ups. She has some puzzles. I don't know if you guys got a couple of charms.
Yes, it's like surprisingly combat light for the first, I don't know. I've really been taking my time, like exploring the woods, trying to find everything, but I've put 4 or 5 hours into it. I'm still in the first Alan sequence.
Okay.
So I'm probably going pretty slowly, but it's pretty, like, I've probably killed like 20 enemies or less at this point in the game. Like, they're really not throwing that much combat at you, so for as challenging as it can be.
Well, some of it seems skippable too. Like, it seems like they're random encounters in the woods, encounters that repopulate in the woods.
And you can definitely like circumvent some of those enemies, and it seems like they do respawn, which again is good that they drop ammo. But the thing I was gonna say though is just like there's a ton of world building in the first 3 hours or whatever. A
lot of good Control tie-in stuff too.
Ton of walking around the woods, talking to Casey, investigating a murder, blah, 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 going back to town. Like, you can wander around that town and do quite a bit more than we did in the stream. I mean, you're kind of going off the story path at that point, but you can, like, wander around in that lodge and talk to townspeople and find stuff.
I never did find
It's so weird, man. The game is so weird. There is so much fucking weird world building stuff in this. It's incredible.
It's really good, and You can, I don't know if you did it, Brad, but just for anybody playing, there is it was the first optional side mission thing I saw too, like explore this area before you leave, and that will tick off if it feels like you have seen everything that's there.
I kept exploring, doing stuff. I was like, am I missing things? Yeah. Can I come back here later? Should I just leave? Because I've got a story objective, but I want to see all this stuff. And then the second I picked up the last item, Casey radios. He's like, hey, we've made it to the car. What are you doing?
Yeah.
She's like, okay, I think I'm about done here. Like, they do make it pretty clear. I thought those side puzzles as you're wandering around the forest with the little dolls and the nursery rhymes and stuff,
So is there one you just can't do yet? I did 2 of them, and then the one with the birds.
No, I found 3 and did all 3.
You did? You did the 1 bird, 2 bird, 3 bird one?
Oh, which one was that? How many did you find?
I think I found 4.
Oh, did I miss one completely?
There was the one where, maybe I found 3. There's the one, well, I guess I can just tell you by the charms. I forget the charm. I mean, I did the one that was led inside the house.
Yes.
I did the one that led to the little house that was by the stream.
The save point?
Yeah, by the save point.
Yes.
There was the one outside outside a cabin that just was a poem about birds. And every time I put down the first piece, she was like, "Nah, that's not right." And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not doing this. I might have missed one then. I thought I found them all, but there's that note you find that tells you how many there are. I think there were 4 in that.
Maybe I missed one entirely.
There is a lot of missable stuff in that game.
Those woods, and like I've played later parts of the game, and like I played later Saga stuff, like around the amusement park and stuff at that preview event. Like the woods at the beginning feel pretty unique in how hard they are to navigate.
Okay.
I'm bringing this up to say I don't think the rest of the game is like this. Like the outdoor stuff with her later was much more like straightforward. I can even in wooded areas was more like I can pretty much tell where I'm supposed to go and what are valid paths from here. Okay. Whereas that first forest area, like I'm constantly looking at the map trying to figure like, is that another path I can walk up? Is that just set dressing that isn't actually walkable? Like it's really hard to find your way around in those woods, which may be intentional.
It's very labyrinthine, and it's very there are a lot of corners to poke around in, a lot of like nooks and crannies. You will get these kind of iridescent or black light-ish arrows that'll point you towards power-ups and secrets and stashes, and those are pretty helpful too, because otherwise it would be even harder. But those arrows really do help kind of guide you in the general direction. And what is it? Torn pages that get you the upgrades?
Manuscript fragments.
Yeah, manuscript.
Or your upgrade currency.
Which is, you want those.
Because it's more fucking Alan Wake. You are finding manuscript pages all over the place that are essentially describing things that you have done or will do.
Yeah.
And who wrote them and for what purpose and who can say. There's a lot of weird mystery shit happening.
The writer will write.
And then you kind of...
I have to write.
Then, like on the Alan Wake side of things, he has similar mechanics where he can go into his mind palace, but he has a...
you mean the writer's room.
The writer's room.
Which is an incredible name.
His stuff is where I think the game really starts to pick up steam in terms of going into its meta-narrative. Because I don't want to spoil this scene, but the talk show scene is amazing.
Talk show like blew my mind.
That's really good. A lot of fun stuff in there for people who are also just familiar with their games in there. And then Alan has a new mechanic, and I don't remember if you got into this, Brad, but...
Yeah, I talked about it from the
where you can change the location.
I did a lot of that, in that demo. Because I was much later in the game, so I haven't seen that part yet.
Okay, so that you get that pretty quickly as in Alan's stuff. They kind of introduce it, fairly slowly, where you can modify... On his cork board, it's more used to modify the actual physical location by adding basically modifiers to a scene. I think the first one you get is a murdered FBI agent, right? So like if you put that in a certain location on the map, suddenly you're kind of I think the intent is now he has written that into his story, or he has changed the communication of that story to make the scene around this murdered FBI agent or whatever version of that is, and that opens up paths and changes things. He also has a mechanic where he can gather light into a lamp.
Yeah, his stuff is basically, and it's all in New York, so it's a lot of interiors, and even when you're outside, it's like streets and alleyways and stuff, not the really dense organic forested stuff that Saga is mostly dealing with, or a lot of her stuff. So his stuff is much more, it's all about changing that environment, whether it's rewriting the nature of reality and having that become real, or using that light to kind of flip between two versions of the world, which I feel like is a really striking effect.
Mm-hmm. It's cool.
Just like going into the mind place and the writer's room, it's like one frame. There's no loading, no transition, no nothing. It's like press the button to steal the light or put the light in, and it like entire scene in front of you just changes instantly. Like it feels very next gen. Like there's a lot of stuff in this game, kind of like Spider-Man recently, that's just like, oh man, this Like we're getting into it now. Like I'm starting to see stuff that I feel like I never would have seen on the old consoles.
Yeah. It's cool, but he does get into fairly, again, labyrinthine places where there are branching paths or multiple paths. But Alan's stuff even gets weirder because you wind up with multiple ways to change the environment, multiple different iterations.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so you wind up in the situation of like, oh boy, all right, let me explore all of this before I change the environment to this one other thing. Now I'll explore all of that. Now I'll change it again. And the thing with Alan's, I don't know if you've gotten much of this yet, Brad, or did in the preview event. Alan's environment is polluted with spectral figures, like just milling about, and sometimes they will notice you and attack you, or you can stealth past them. There are upgrades to stealth better, but I feel like it's hard to know exactly which ones are going to turn aggressive or not. Some turn into the full-on axe guys and just go after you, and some you can just banish with the flashlight with a.
Oh yes, I did some of that in that preview event where it's like, oh my god, there's like 8 guys here, but most of them, if I shine the flashlight on them, they just evaporate.
Yeah, so I wind up just kind of trying to turn, and they give you prompts that are like, hey, don't forget you can turn your flashlight off with B. And I was like, oh, can I just do that and sneak past? And then I wind up getting some upgrades for Alan. He's got, I forget what it's called, the power of the word or something. He finds all these circles written in weird ways that are like, it's like the word of the lamp and like the word of the gun and the word of the whatever, that are like, oh, enemies, 20% better chance to not be seen by enemies. And I was like, oh, okay, I should probably be trying to sneak past more of these encounters than not. Those enemies, by the way, Brad, do not drop ammo. Heads up.
Interesting.
You stop getting those ammo drops. The other thing that is a little weird is, since I died multiple times in the same spot, the ammo pickups from crates and stuff are random. Sometimes you'll open that thing on a playthrough or a save, and there's a bunch of stuff in there. Sometimes I open it, and there's nothing in that same one. So that's a little weird. But Alan's stuff, super fun and weird, and those mechanics, very different than Saga's, I guess, in the context of this game, more normal kind of playthrough. Alan is just like, it's a mind bender, man. He's doing some really weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's trapped in the dark place. This is not reality, so like things can get as weird as they want
and fun.
And yeah, dude, the storytelling techniques in this are so crazy. Like,
I
don't know how much you've seen of it, but like the blending FMV on top of the environment as you're walking around in it. Have you gotten any of those sort of like Alex
echoes?
Casey monologues?
Yeah, they're the echoes where yes, you just kind of like got to line up the two spheres.
Yes. Yeah. And then like those are some of the things I came out of that event going like, man, this like just the presentation in this game is just so next level. Like the way that they blend that actor moving around in your 3D space while you can still move around as well.
It's pretty good, and like it's fun though. Again, I really like this stuff, but technically those are some of the things that I was like, if you do those and then you die, you go back and you're like, oh, I gotta watch this again. These are unskippable. And it's like, I want them checked off on my list, and like I know what they're saying. And plus, listening to those echoes will give Alan more things to add to his corkboard. So you want to make sure you get some of those. But yeah, the presentation of it is awesome.
They're having a blast with this stuff. Like, the thing I will give this game more than anything else so far, because I think I'm very kind of middle of the road on the gameplay so far, is that they clearly went in with a distinct vision for what they thought a modern version of Alan Wake could be, and I think that vision is pretty compelling. And you know, they're taking a lot of what they figured out with Control and sort of finding ways to apply that to something that isn't just like a fast-paced shooter. Again, I have some issues slightly with the survival horror nature of the game, but I think what they're going for is super compelling, and I think on a storytelling and presentation level, this is some of the most exciting shit I have seen Remedy do.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I would kind of say some of the most exciting shit I've seen generally in games in a while, like just mainly in terms of visual techniques and stuff like that. But also like the confidence and ambition of what they're doing, you know, like the story is pretty fucking out there for a video game, but they are just going for it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to see where their influences are pulling from, but the thing is, I think they're applying them in a way that feels pretty fresh and pretty inventive. And, you know, like, again, they're taking a game that for them was not one of their biggest successes. It has its audience, certainly, and its fans. I thought the first game was kind of neat, but like they are definitely like there's a lot more going on here, like mentally and storytelling wise, than I think what the original Alan Wake had going on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody in the Twitch chat reminded me on Friday that like this game is a lot closer to kind of what the original pitch for the first Alan Wake was, which was going to be much more of an semi-open world with detective story elements. Yeah. Is how they originally announced Alan Wake, and then it took forever to make, and by the time they got it out, it had just kind of become a shooter.
Yes.
And it seemed like it really fell short of what their ambitions were, so like they've kind of made that game now.
It wasn't a bad shooter, but it definitely did not feel as much like a horror game as maybe they had initially pitched it.
Like this has got a much more open structure. Like Vinny, I don't know how much have you gotten to a point where you can like go back to old areas? I guess mainly as Saga. That's probably less relevant for Alan, but it seems like my impression is you can kind of go back to Cauldron Lake or Bright Falls kind of whenever.
I have not. I finished the Saga part and I finished the Alan Wake part, and now I'm back to Saga, but I have not gotten to a thing where I can go switch between the characters whenever I want. I don't know if that's coming.
It is coming.
Okay.
It's in the tutorials. I mean, I know because they told me about it at that event, but also it's already in your tutorials. They add the how to switch between characters thing to the tutorials way before you get it.
Okay.
Which is another amazing thing. You can only do it in certain save rooms.
Oh.
And the device, like the object you interact with to switch to the other character is the puddle from the janitor's bucket on the floor.
Oh, wow.
Because if you're a big fan of the janitor from Control, I have good news for you. There's some janitor shit in there, but like literally it's like, hey, if there's a puddle on the floor, you can like go through it to become the other character.
I think that's my favorite stuff that I am
the stuff that's resonating with you.
Yeah, is the tie-ins with their universe building from Control to this, where it's like, I love that Control universe. I think it's a lot of fun. This is definitely more, and we should say this too. This is gory is not the right word. It's a much more visceral game than Alan Wake
dark.
was.
Like,
yeah, it's a horror game. Like it is. It does feel like a horror game that is informed by recent horror games. Like the thing it kind of reminds me the most of, though, I think it's its own brand of Buck Wild, is kind of the where Evil Within ended up.
Sure. Yeah, I could kind of see that. Yeah, it is much darker than the first game.
Yeah.
And Control was not graphic, but like the stuff that's going on where the nonsense from Control makes its way into this game. The thing I loved about Control was nonsensical things being taken extremely seriously by the Bureau, right? And Alan Wake kind of also has that in his world, Alan's world, these things that are just like ridiculous, like you said, Brad, the puddle, like they have very serious implications and have to be taken seriously. And they're kind of, at least by Alan, kind of unquestioned. I think Saga is coming to grips with what this stuff means, but Alan's got to walk around with a lamp, right? That's like, that's his totem for kind of harnessing light power. He's like, yeah, of course, that's how that would work.
I love. Oh, sorry.
I think that's my favorite stuff.
I think they show like an admirable amount of restraint with the Control stuff. Like they didn't thankfully I love Control, but I'm glad they didn't just go turn this into a stealth Control sequel.
Right.
No, it's not that.
Like the FBC is there around the edges and like maybe a little more prominent than I expected, but also they don't let it like steal the show. Like this is still very much an Alan Wake story. I do love, and this is partially from watching that Sam Lake recap, because they show like the AWE DLC for Control is set up for this game.
Right.
And so they show the ending of that in there. I love the implication that for Alan Wake, all this shit that's going on is sort of like the defining traumatic experience of his life.
Mm-hmm.
For the FBC, it's Tuesday.
Yeah, right, totally.
It's like all the Cauldron Lake shit that's happening is just like yet another manila folder of case file for an agent at the Bureau. Like this shit happens everywhere all the time for them.
And that is like perfect. That is the perfect way to approach it, because as much as I like the idea of these things existing in a shared universe and being able to connect the dots between them, like I would have been really bummed if Jesse Faden had just swung in from out of nowhere. It's like, it's my game now. Like, no, make them a factor, certainly. But it seems like they found a nice balance for that stuff of like, we know you like Control. Here's a little of that, but this is an Alan Wake game.
Yeah, I mean, having looked at the cast list, I only know this from that I think there is maybe a little more direct character involvement on the part of somebody from the FBC at some point. But I still don't, it still very much feels like a follow-up to Alan Wake.
Is that the Janina character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a book with Dr.
Dr. Casper Darling.
Dr. Casper Darling, which was just fun to see.
Who is that actor? Am I crazy here?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It is 100% Alan Wake. I thought so. I didn't it seems so improbable because they look so fucking different, especially how I came across that book last night and saw the cover photo of him. Like they dress him up so differently, but it's totally the same actor.
That's great. So that's the fun stuff. I think, Alex, like you said, they're having a lot of fun doing their horror game, and you can kind of feel that for as serious and heavy. And the writing, I think, is very good. So far, the prose, like Alan's writing is not corny or cheesy. Like it's pretty good. Like I feel like there's a real possibility that stuff can become too in the weeds cliche, for what they're going for. It's very noir, for a lot of the Alex Casey stuff, but it plays and it works well. I mean, they pulled off Max Payne, so I guess, they know what they're doing in those circles, but they're having a goof with a lot of it. And that kind of seeps through some of the horror.
There's a lot of meta stuff in this for sure of your partner is Max Payne in this, but he's also the same name as Alan Wake's famous protagonist, and the hell is going on there, or stuff like that. I need to correct myself real quick. I think the actor who plays Darling is only the voice of Alan Wake. He's not the...
That's correct, yeah. The likeness is different. Not
the on-screen actor, but I want to say that on-screen actor... No, he does talk, actually. He does have dialogue, so...
It's so hard to even tell, Brad, what's going on as you are that deep into it. Who's what, when, which version of which person are we seeing when?
And they are switching pretty seamlessly between FMV actors and 3D models of the characters, literally shot to shot in some cases.
And in some cases, it's actually a little hard to discern which one is real and not.
It sounds grandiose to say this, but there are absolutely, and it's a fucking amazing looking game. I think pretty much all the Saga stuff, because her stuff is very real world, like going for a realistic look. Mm-hmm. Looks great, but still you can tell it's a video game. Mm-hmm. It's specifically some of the nighttime Alan Wake stuff. I am 100% with you. There have been multiple shots, and it's where the lighting is low and flat. It's not there's a spotlight on the character's face, a frontal shot of the face. You can tell okay, it's a video game model. But when the lighting is low and red or something, there are absolutely spots where I can't tell if the model is an FMV character or a 3D model. Just the rendering quality on some parts of this game is just completely insane.
It's as good as a modern video game has gotten at blurring the lines between that stuff, because it's never we're not at the generation yet where that stuff is just going to be flawless, but it is a real achievement in that regard.
Yeah, I think that if you can say in literally any context at all, I'm not quite sure if this is photographic or 3D. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty big accomplishment.
That means you've done something.
It's good, and they use it to good effect. They are using that technology well, not just for showcasing a technical achievement. It's a very stylized game.
This is a game I will describe as pleasantly up its own ass. There are a lot of games where I feel like you get this meta, you do this much weird shit, you can definitely run the risk of just being annoying about it. And so far, none of what I have played has been remotely annoying.
Yes, I feel like the spectrum for that type of stuff ranges from rolling your eyes on one end to just going hell yeah on the other end, and this game is all the way on the hell yeah end of the spectrum. Yeah. Everything they do that's weird in this is just oh my god, that's amazing. I want to see more of this.
So far, I mean, and it's kept me on my toes. I really don't know exactly what they're gonna be going for here. It's Alan's battling with this. Even the words they use, the writing is so what is it? The dark presence, the
dark presence, yeah,
the dark presence. It's that
place
is really corny, man.
Yes,
yeah, for sure.
You get this point where Alan kind of interacts with Saga and and they're going over the beats of it, and Saga is saying it in this very dry, okay, and then we have to run from the dark presence, right?
Mm-hmm. Saga is her own interesting situation of and a lot of the characters are kind of like this, but she especially has got such a level of detachment or bemusement at all the insane shit that's going on that it has to be intentional.
Oh yeah.
Like she's going through some fucking crazy shit.
Yeah.
And immediately comes out of it just like cracking jokes with Casey over the phone or saying, like just has a really lighthearted approach to everything that's going on here. And it feels very Lynch. Like it feels, having now seen some Twin Peaks finally, it feels, she very much feels like she's written like a Lynch character.
Let me put it this way, and I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, here, but I will just say a lot of the stuff that they are directly referencing from Twin Peaks you have not gotten to yet.
So there is, okay, again, I've only seen season 1 of Twin Peaks, and I really want to see the rest of it, but there is a part, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, because it happens a couple of times, where Alex Casey and Saga both drink out of their coffee cups at the same exact time multiple times.
Yes.
Which feels like the most Lynch thing or most Twin Peaks thing in that thing.
Sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
With like choreographed coffee drinking. I don't know what's going on. Again, you could tell me that like some of these characters don't really exist. The coffee, FK and the coffee. I have no idea.
I think like the most mind-blowing example of this kind of thing to me is on that talk show when the host is like, man, I can't wait to read your new book. You left us on a real cliffhanger on the last one. I mean, what did it mean? It's not a lake, it's an ocean, which is the last line of dialogue from the Alan Wake, the video game.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Which, like, I'd forgotten most of that game. Like, I'd forgotten the character of Nightingale completely and Rose and a lot of the characters in this who were actually from the first game. But that line has always stuck with me because the end of that game is, like, kind of a mindfuck. And that's literally the last, like, shot of the game. He says that. And now here's a character saying, "Hey, that was the last line of your last novel. What's going?" It's just like it's just such rapid fire, like self-reference on top of self-reference, and crazy visual storytelling techniques. Like it's just such a wild game on every level, other than the shooting, which is just kind of,
which is fine,
clunky, slightly clunky, but
that's
doable,
cool. I didn't even realize that, and
Yeah.
I love hearing that because it feels like you're in trusted hands with their own material, right?
Yes.
Like. They are taking their material as seriously as maybe the fans are and able to do it deftly and tie it in to where they're not just wallpapering over certain things. That's fun to hear. I need to go back and get a refresher on the first game in the DLC.
Yeah, just pull up that Sam Lake video. It's like 12 minutes. And
okay.
Like he covers American Nightmare, the whole thing.
I'm sure they also covering what's relevant to know for this game as well, instead of something else, which might just go into everything. I really am enjoying Alan Wake 2 so far. Again, the only nitpick I have, and it's a little bit more than a nitpick, it's kind of a grievance, is the save stuff, because it is actually getting in the way of my progression here and there.
It's a little irritating.
I am getting more survivable, and I will say, as Alan, they throw a lot of upgrade opportunities at you that are quite missable, in a way that I kind of wish they gave you some kind of checklist for how many are in an area to know, because must have hit about 10, if not more, that I was like, oh man, and they're so good. Like, one of them is like gain 30% more health back on your health bar in those safe areas, and like that's huge.
Yeah.
Or like a 1 out of 20 chance of not expending ammo or get ammo back, and you want those. They make you more survivable. So that's helped out a lot, and also kind of meeting the game a bit on where it is and being like, all right, I should just go back and, like you said, Brad, just don't make that mistake again, right? Like, if this is how we're going to do saves, I need to go back and save, or I need to not do this thing until I'm in a safe room, which is, it's fine, I guess. I hope they patch some of that out or fix some of that or find a way to get around some of that. But I should also mention I'm playing, I think you guys are all playing on normal, like the normal difficulty.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about knocking it back, actually.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shame in, I mean, there never is, but especially here, like, This definitely feels like a game where you're willing to put up with some rough edges to see the amazing stuff it's doing, which is kind of constantly coming at you.
Yeah.
But like the checkpoints are rough. I think the combat can be a little punishing.
Yeah.
Like it's even just a little jank in some of the character movement and some of the, like, when you like kind of walk into physics objects, they kind of like jerk around in a weird way. Like there's just a little bit of, or if you run into like the end of a path in the forest, like the way that the character just sort of like jitters against the invisible wall, stuff like that. There's a little bit of polished stuff that isn't quite there, but like it's relatively easy to overlook all that stuff for the truly incredible things that it's doing.
There is a thing with chairs in this game where it feels like you have a field around you and chairs will kind of like repel away from you.
Yes, that's chairs are the main physics thing I was thinking about, where it doesn't feel like you're like touching these things naturally.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if that, again, it's such a weird game. It's like, is this supposed to be happening? Is this chair supposed to be gliding away from me or not?
Probably not quite like that.
Probably not. And it brought me back to remembering Max Payne 1, where I feel like was maybe one of the first physics games I played, and just remember
that's about the right time frame.
Yeah, dodging around that opening like hospital, whatever. I don't know if it's Max Payne 1 or 2, but basically knocking everything over and the cans and all this stuff and playing with the physics around there. Alan Wake 2, $50, Epic Game Store and PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, out now. Oh, one last thing I'll just mention. I am very close to doing that, like, delete Epic Game Store overlay on those achievements.
Uh-huh.
That thing sucks.
I saw.
They're not great.
I mean, what is like news writing on the internet? Who knows who runs what these days and written by whom? But I saw Yahoo Finance, of all places, ran a story about that exact thing.
It's
like they literally did a write-up on like, hey, this is ruining the game. This is the most terrifying thing about Alan Wake is the fucking achievement sound.
It's bad. I never really noticed it before.
It's funny in a way, but it's bad.
It's funny, but this game's atmosphere is so immaculate. And I should say, I mean, I could sit here for another 30 minutes talking about cool stuff in this game. Like the atmosphere, especially like in the woods, but I'm sure also in New York as you get deeper into it, like pretty truly oppressive. Like it's pretty frightening. The sound design, like the lack of visibility, you know, like the danger of the enemies, like it's pretty creepy to walk around in this game. So having it interrupted by that, like most delightful of little jingles is just,
it's not great.
It undermines the feel of the game.
Yeah, it's like this little jingle that plays after somebody's been like, and he was eviscerated, you know, and then it's like, ding. You're like, okay, well, come on, man.
Yeah.
And there's only, I guess, the only way to do it is to go in and actually delete that overlay. I don't know if it's per game or per system wide.
I think it's just once for the Epic launcher. There's a couple of methods so you can like go rename or delete the executable that runs the like overlay.
Okay.
For Epic Store. If you know how to do this, you can get Ear Trumpet or something to do this. You can also just turn the volume of that application down.
Oh, okay.
If you know how to set like per application volume sound settings in Windows, you can just mute the Epic Store application.
Oh, okay. It'll come up as its own application.
Yeah, I haven't tried that, but I've seen people saying that works.
Maybe I'll give that a shot.
That doesn't disable the banner popping up.
The banner I don't mind.
The banner's not so bad.
It's the sound.
It's the sound effect is just so goofy.
It just really feels out of place, and there are a lot of them. Like I should say, you get them quite a bit throughout the course of the game. It's not like every hour. It's like a few an hour. All right, that's Alan Wake 2. We're gonna take a quick break here. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about some more games, including some spoilers for Spider-Man 2, which we'll do towards the end of talking about our game segment. So keep an ear out for that if you're worried about spoilers for Spider-Man 2. We'll be right back. This week's show is brought to you by Bespoke Post. Alex Navarro and Brad Shoemaker. We are here in the end of October, the beginning of November, as of the time of this recording, and I have some traveling to do. And one of the things I need to do is get a suit across the country.
Oh, that's a hassle.
That is a hassle. But a thing I didn't even know was made, a thing I didn't even know I wanted, came to me in a box of awesome from Bespoke Post. It is a garment bag that is basically a duffel bag, and then when you unzip it, it turns into like a garment bag, like a suit bag. You put your suit in it, it kind of rolls and zips back up into a duffel bag, and you put your stuff inside the duffel bag, shoes and jeans or whatever, and it goes in the overhead. It's amazing. It's awesome. I love it.
That is the kind of invention that only a small business owner could come up with. You know, only the small business people out there could invent things like this.
That's right. And the box of awesome has all sorts of things that come from small businesses. Actually, 90% of everything that comes in your box of awesome is from a small up-and-coming brand, Alex Navarro. To get started, you take a quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers help them pick the right box of awesome for you, and they release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. Each box is valued around $70, but of course, you're only going to pay a fraction of that price. It's free to sign up, and you can skip a month or cancel at any time. I'll tell you what, it's great for introducing you to things that you didn't even know you needed.
But they did.
But they did. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code NEXTLANDER at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code NEXTLANDER for 20% off your first box. Boxofawesome.com, code NEXTLANDER. Thanks, Bespoke Post. And we are back, and before we get into anything Spider-Man related, I have also tried to push through on Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Power to you, man.
You know,
It's tried the operative word here.
I've made progress. I've been kind of murdering people, I guess, is what you do in that game.
That's what you do in those games, so that tracks.
But with purpose.
Yeah. I kind of started giving up doing the extra contracts in that game and just started mainlining the story, and things have been flying by. I think I have the main, there's like a spoken hub model to this thing, and I am now on the hub for the assassination. They kind of, you do these side missions, and there's the hub one. So unless things really take a turn, I feel like I'm near the end here on my last assassination, at least what they're pursuing as their last assassination here. And I have a feeling once I'm done with that, I'm going to put this game right down. I'm not really enjoying the side stuff or any of the other gear breadcrumbs or carrots on sticks or what have you.
A ringing endorsement.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't hate what's going on, especially now that I'm just some kind of I remember somewhere in Assassin's Creed, maybe it was 3 or 4, or somebody had described to me that Ubisoft's made the assassins just murder Cuisinarts, and I feel like I am a murder Cuisinart now, where I just am blades just going, and I don't even stop. I just run through an area just taking people out. It's not trivial, but it is not hard. Very survivable, got good gear. I don't know if Alex, you got to that part where you have that kind of secret gear that's in that cave that seems
I'm nowhere near. I mean, like I got into kind of the main, like, okay, now you're kind of in the world, you can start doing assassinations and missions for people and stuff.
Okay.
Past all the training stuff and whatever, but then I bombed out pretty hard after that. I just wasn't finding anything to grab onto.
It's funny, like I just, the hooks in it just don't feel that great to me. Anyway, I'm gonna try and finish that up. Maybe the story will get really interesting, but so far I found the story, the like main, let's call it time period story that is going on, to be not that interesting at all. Maybe the kind of meta story will be more interesting. I have not gotten any outside of kind of the Animus. I assume we're in an Animus still. I don't even know, but I haven't gotten any of that in this game. So I'm going to try and push through and see what happens. And like I said, it's not grabbing me, but it is, there's enough there in momentum to think I just take me across the finish line in that one and just put it down. And also I've done some more Super Mario Brothers Wonder, not a ton, but I am still really enjoying just picking that up and playing a couple of levels and putting it back down between games. It's just a well-designed platformer.
I have 2 games lined up for while I'm traveling. That is one of them. The other one is I think I'm going to finally try and finish El Paso Elsewhere on my Steam Deck, because they just did a big update for that game where they reconfigured some control things to be more Steam Deck friendly.
Nice.
Seems like that may have done reasonably well. I feel like I've seen a fair number of people talking about it.
It reviewed extremely well, and my understanding is that financially it's at least doing what they needed it to do. So
that's cool. Good to hear. That seemed like a
because
cool
that game apparently was a real like, hey, this might break our studio kind of thing.
Great. Well, that's El Paso Elsewhere, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Not too much to report on there right now, but maybe in the future. And then This is where we give our spoiler warning, and we're going to talk about Spider-Man 2. Brad, you have wrapped up Spider-Man 2.
Yes, I finished it. I finished it mere hours after we finished recording last week.
Alex, you have not finished it quite yet, but you're pretty far along. So
I'm pretty far along, and at this point, I'm perfectly happy to just talk about whatever happens in that game.
You're past where I was. Are we doing it? Is this just spoiler town?
So I'm going to take a break one more time here and say, if you're looking to bypass this, you can go into the news section. That's where this is going to be the last game we talk about in the game section. So we are going to have spoilers for the end of that game's story. If you don't want to hear any of that stuff, again, fast forward, move on to the news section.
Your warning.
I'm trying to stretch this out so it gets past everybody's
I think we're
skip.
Good. We've done our work here.
Period. All right, Brad, get into it.
I couldn't believe it when Mary Jane killed Peter Parker.
I know.
Again, she's always doing it.
Last week I was right after Venom. Right after you play as Venom, like Venom shows up in the story right as Kraven is written out of it, basically. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, this has got to be the ending. And then I saved right after that, at which point they're like, here's new side activity. And why don't you go mop up some other stuff you haven't done yet until we unlock the next mission? But then I went and sat back down after that podcast and finished it in one sitting. So
okay,
it is another like 5 story missions or something. But
did you wind up doing all the other symbiote farms, the symbiote nests?
Yes, yeah, okay. I did all those. Well, I didn't do all of the second wave until after I finished the game.
Okay,
but Alex, you're past where you play as Venom, right?
Yeah.
So you've seen everything except the last fight, basically. Like,
okay,
I've
still got a bunch of open world stuff to mop up, but like as far as the story is concerned, it feels like I'm pretty close.
So I'd say the only thing narrative wise that takes a little bit of a turn there is the reason Peter gets his like symbiote powers back after.
Oh right, yes.
After the suit,
I think,
it's some comic book hijinks.
I played through so much of that game in such a short period. I think like the order of events is a little jumbled in my head.
Yeah.
Does the Miles Martin Lee stuff happen before? No, Kraven's still in it. Then that's before Venom.
That's before Venom.
That's all Venom. Okay.
So when he gets his like suck people in powers, yeah.
Right. But the Peter and Martin Lee stuff is after. That's right.
That's after.
Yeah, so you do get the whole white symbiote suit justification for here's these cool new powers back that we took away from you.
Yeah, which is kind of weird narratively because it's just like the good Venom now, like the good symbiote suit, and like I don't know. And then Martin Lee kind of loses his powers. He becomes like just a regular dude, so he can't do this too. Who is Venom, but our favorite friend, Osborn.
I tried, maybe comic fans can let us know. I tried to figure out if there's ever been a Harry Osborn as Venom storyline, and I could not find evidence of anything like that.
It's Harry. It's your friend Harry.
Yeah. I mean, they really telegraphed that pretty early on. But
yeah. I never had, well, there was like a 2% lingering doubt of like, are they going to introduce an Eddie Brock character like right at the end of this or something? But no, it is absolutely.
So you did finish the since we're in full spoiler territory, you finished the flame missions, right? Where you get the start of Carnage.
Oh, that shit was like, this is what's weird that I'm getting all excited about this because I'm not a comic book person at all. I didn't know who the fuck Cletus Cassidy even was until I just randomly happened to look up some stuff about Carnage.
Yeah,
like the day before I did that last flame mission, and then like. His literal last line of dialogue in the game, like the literal last word he speaks in dialogue is Carnage.
Yeah.
And then they refer to him as like Cletus Cassidy is an alien, whatever. I thought it was a cool, like,
yeah,
a cool setup for more symbiote shit down the line.
So what'd you think?
I like love this game, like really enjoyed it. I think there's like 3 things about the storytelling that get a little uneven here and there, but like, overall, thought it was fantastic.
I think for a game where they had to jam in as much stuff as they seemingly had to, they do a pretty good job of not making it feel like they are overstuffing you with villains and characters.
Yeah. I think that's probably the right take, or that's where I land, is like, they did about as well as you could expect for how much just the sheer amount of stuff is that's going on in this game.
Yeah.
I think narratively I had a lot of fun with this game, though I think they wind up couple of times doing 2 steps forward, 1 steps back in the narrative, it's a little frustrating where you're like, I just did this thing. Now we got, and then the person, I just beat this guy, and then they jump out of the window with the doodad or the widget.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I started getting a little frustrated with was the boss fight mechanics. where they just do multiple stage boss fights in kind of a boring way. Like, it's just like, all right, go fight this boss until the health bar is down, and then you get thrown through the wall, kind of MK style, and like, let's just do it again.
There is a severe escalation of that, because I think when you go get the suit off of Peter as Miles, you probably fight through like 3 health bars.
Yeah.
And then when you fight MJ as, is that character named Scream, I believe?
Oh, when she's the female, like
MJ
Venom.
gets symbioted, which I thought was an amazing fight. I thought the like fight in the middle of suburban Queens,
Yeah.
like the visual and like all the shit she was yelling at you, and it just like, I thought that fight was
That's when
fantastic.
I had my bug. That's when I had my box bug.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that's 4 health bars, and then by the time you do the last Venom fight, it's like 6 or something.
It just kind of feels like they go on forever, right?
Yeah, I mean, the spectacle is like second to none, though. Like, holy shit, man. Like, just the amount of money they put into these big set piece encounters is like crazy.
Well, I don't know you seem like you were in a similar place by the time you got to the end of that Venom fight. You were pretty dang juiced up on all the power-ups, right? Like,
so it took me like maybe an hour to get the platinum after I beat the game, because I hit max level. I upgraded everything to max. I got almost all of everything there was to get before I even did the last mission.
I do feel like if you're doing that, and it's not that hard to do, you are just spamming so many abilities and tricks, and they come back so quickly, and the symbiote surge is happening constantly.
You're like barely at punching stuff at that point. It's almost constantly abilities and gadgets.
And so you can manage the kind of formidable escalation of symbiotes. They become much harder than the normal thugs in the game. But you have so much going on that you can kind of crowd control them. And I thought that Venom fight, while it was really fun, wasn't that hard compared to some of the middle game fights.
Yeah, no, I pretty much all the, like, I'm trying to think. When do you fight Kraven? Anyway, I think from whatever late game point on, all the boss fights I thought were more, I'm just there to do these and feel excited about the story stuff that's happening, unless like this is going to be difficult in any real way. Like you're just popping off your abilities, whether it's a stun, like put the character up in the air, a pop up or whatever it is, and then just spamming through to the point where when I would hit something and it wasn't there, felt shocking. When I was like, oh wait, that's not recharged yet. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And the kind of switch from narratively, I thought they do a pretty decent job of giving Miles, not for some of that game, he feels like he's second fiddle. And I feel like they do a pretty good job. For a lot
of it, honestly. So, like, as much as I think there is some good Miles stuff in there, for a good chunk of it, it really is, like, not his story. Yeah, and that kind of goes to what I was saying about it being a little uneven, and that they maybe crammed just a tad too much in, because, like, they absolutely sidelined Miles for a big chunk of the middle as they set up the symbiote stuff, but also the symbiote stuff is both complicated and dire enough you have to devote time to it.
Yeah.
Because if anything, I feel like they could have gone further in the direction of Peter as becoming a monster before they peeled it off of him.
It doesn't go that bad.
No, I feel like you kind of are getting the like PG rated version of Peter being corrupted by this thing, and then all of a sudden it's just gone.
But you do get the sense, as much as like Miles is kind of narratively off to the side, that Miles is just kind of the better Spider-Man. He is the one who morally and kind of inner Spider-Man is able to pull through a lot. I mean, look, Peter's doing a lot of stuff with Harry, and that's really tough. And, they do a pretty good job of making that bond seem real between Harry and Peter. But Miles is constantly pulling Peter from the brink in this game, like up until the end. He's basically, I don't know how many times Peter says, thank you, thank you, Miles. I don't know if I could have done it. And I think Miles comes off really, I like playing as Miles a lot. And for almost 80% of that game, Miles felt like the stronger character to play as. Once you start getting some deep symbiote stuff, Peter can really wreck shop. The symbiote powers are absurd. They're kind of absurd, especially against the symbiotes. Especially when you get the second wave of symbiote powers. Oh, yeah. When you're just doing that, like, explode out. And then the bomb throwing, like that thing where you just throw a bomb that just, like, erases any enemies it hits. Yeah, it's pretty intense, even compared to Miles' late game power he gets. But I still think Miles is a great character, and it seems like at the end of this game, they are just moving forward with Miles as their Spider-Man. Yeah, at least that's what they set up. I don't know that Peter is even... Did they address that? I mean, they post game Pete, you can play as Peter and Miles, like he's back out there just wrapping some stuff.
Oh no,
up,
no, I mean like has the studio, has Insomniac said something about that as well?
If they have, I have not missed that.
Yeah,
I don't think they have.
Like it seems entirely possible that Peter's not even going to be playable from here on out.
Yeah, they set it up where he's like going into retirement. Like and Brad, you probably more recently have looked this up, but they post credit scene introduce, who is it?
Silk,
Cindy
Moon. Like, don't let me sit here and hold forth on a bunch of comic book minutia because I don't know shit other than what I've looked up in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I also thought that was a fun way to tie or to tie up the thread of Miles' mom starting to date again that they kind of just like drop.
Yeah,
is the last post credits thing where it turns out that her new dude is the father of the teenage girl who will become Silk, apparently.
Silk's a fairly recent Marvel character, as in, like, I'm pretty sure she is from the last 10 years.
Okay. I think 2014 is what I read. She was introduced. So yeah, it's like, is the next game going to be another 2 playable characters, Miles and Silk, or should they do that? I don't know. Like,
no idea.
I'm not sure if 2 playable characters should be the thing they do constantly from now on or not.
Yeah,
like they did a pretty good job of juggling it here, but I do feel like it's maybe a stronger story around one character. I don't know.
I mean, I'll give them credit if they were going to focus on Miles next time and they want to kind of introduce Silk as having her as a secondary playable character. I don't think that's a bad way necessarily to go, but I do think that the limitations of having a split narrative are present in this game, and it like I said, parts of it where Miles is completely sidelined, where you're having to do the character switching stuff. Like it's a little clunky in a way that I think they pulled off here, but not so much that I'm like, well, they got to do this again.
I wouldn't mind if they did what they did for Miles Morales with that Silk character, have a smaller game to kind of introduce that character and just kind of some slightly different abilities.
Yeah, we're getting a field of what's in this game itself a little bit here, but it's definitely a question I have is like, I'm sure they'll do DLC because this is like Sony's fastest selling game ever. Mm-hmm. And the first game got a bunch of pretty elaborate DLC. But then do they also do that add-on game? Like, do they also do the $40 or now $50? Like, we're taking mostly the assets and engine of the first game and making another product?
I wouldn't mind it.
Both of those things. Like, most people seem to think Carnage is going to be DLC for this game and not some kind of future villain setup.
Okay.
I could see it. I also think they probably don't want to just lean too hard on the symbiote thing over the course of multiple games. Like, I think you could probably do stuff with the symbiotes in another game, but I don't think you want to make them the focus again.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, this is like the one thing that's actually kind of a spoiler for you because like the Venom stuff like wraps up kind of how you think it will, more or less. But like they are absolutely 100% going Green Goblin for the next game.
Yeah,
like
that doesn't surprise me.
That is Norman Osborn goes off the deep end at the end of this game.
Does he say get me the goblin suit or just get me
he says prepare the G serum.
The G serum, that's what it is.
Like because there's like a super soldier serum, I think, or something like that is the thing that is developed that sort of turns him into the more powerful version of himself who then puts on the goblin mask.
It makes me wonder because he's like a late middle-aged dude in this game, he's like not a spring chicken.
He's also kind of jacked already.
Well, I guess so. I mean, also he's fucking rich, but are they going to make him like a guy who can be flung through brick walls and just get right back up in the next game?
If they're doing the G serum, then yes.
Is he just going to become a super soldier, superhuman?
Like, they'll give him the super soldier serum. They'll probably put him in a costume that I imagine has some, like, cyber protective shit on it, because it's always that's how every future version of an old character ends up looking. I mean, look, keep in mind, Willem Dafoe was the Green Goblin in that first movie, and, while Willem Dafoe is in incredible shape, he is an older gentleman.
Sure.
Yeah. Michael Keaton was a Vulture, I think.
Well, Vulture was always an old man. Even in the comics, he was always an old man. Older. Yeah.
I'll say, Brad, I think bringing up Go Get Me the G Serum, Norman going off the deep end was maybe the part that I was afraid was going to happen at the end of this and didn't make any sense to me narratively. I mean, they do set up that Norman is like really fixated on having Harry not die, right? So that's okay. They set that up. But Venom has basically destroyed all of New York and has converted the population of New York into symbiotes. Like, it's apocalyptic.
Like, Venom's about to take over the entire world. Like, I mean, it's a dumb it's a dumb little throwaway detail, but it's something about like the symbiote is about to get into the water supply, and then at that point, it's just going to infect the entire world rapidly. So it's like literally the end of the world is about to happen.
It's the end of the world is going to happen, and Norman has tried to recapture Venom, and Venom has just eviscerated literally every squad that has come to recapture him. Like, he just destroyed them. And so when you finally take out Venom and you get kind of your nice moment with Peter and Harry, and it's like, Harry's like, do it, you got to do it. And he does something, like injects the negative energy juice into Venom, whatever it does. It basically puts Harry into a coma. Doesn't kill him, puts him into a coma. And Norman sees Spider-Man, Peter and Miles as Spider-Man come out. And, what did you do to my boy?
Yeah, it is.
My boy. And he's like, dude, your boy, Norman knows it's Harry in the suit, is like in the Venom suit. It's like, dude, I don't know why Peter wasn't like, dude, what are you talking about? We did the thing we had to do.
It's one of the more annoying types of writing and stuff like this, where it's like all these problems could be solved if the characters just talk to each other. Like, if the Spider-Men just said exactly what happened, it's like, hey, he was going to die.
But Norman saw, like, he was destroying the world.
Right. Like he immediately is just like, they ruined my son.
Yeah.
It's like, fucking, they saved the world, and he's not a monster anymore. It's like,
and
probably
he's not even dead. He's in a coma. Like, the doctor's like, yeah, he might not wake up. There's like, trouble with the brain activity, the whole thing. But like, I'm going to say they did a pretty good job of taking care of that situation.
Like
that you created.
If they're going to go this direction, I think they could have maybe portrayed Norman being insane with grief a little more directly, if that's what they want to do here, because he seems fairly rational about it. He's just wrong.
Or push it more in the misunderstanding direction where he's watching some feed and it looks like Spider-Man has the opportunity to save Harry and he doesn't do it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is pure, like, they literally bring Harry out in the coma, put him on an ambulance, and Norman's like, my boy, what'd you do to him? And I think Spider-Man's like, I don't know. I don't know. And it's like, dude, you stopped Venom and the city is gone. The city is gone. It is just not existent. Like, there's just, I don't know. That was a little tough to swallow, even in comic book standards.
Yes, I'm with you. It's pretty forced. Honestly.
But I'm not surprised. But at the same time, like, what you're describing is very much what I thought they were going to be doing as I have worked my way through this game. So it does, like, I didn't know that they were going to stick the landing. It sounds like they didn't 100%, but also, like, they at least create some pretty exciting stakes, if nothing else. I'm still happy to, like, looking forward to finishing it. I'm still having a lot of fun in that game, but it sounds like they were doing the exact thing I thought they were going to angle toward eventually.
And I think that's what mostly was a little disappointing about that thread line, which was, you do feel like this is where they're going to go, but how are they going to get there? And I just feel like they kind of jammed that puzzle piece in at the end to make it fit. And you're like, okay, look, we got there.
They do a little leapfrog maneuver just to find their way in there somehow.
Yeah. And throughout the rest of the game, they do a pretty good job of making the relationships, whether they really put the pedal down to be like, this is too corny and nice, but like, they do a decent job of making the relationships feel like they are meaningful between the characters. Especially, I think, again, most of the Miles stuff feels less forced than the Peter stuff. And Miles' relationship with his mom and the school stuff and going through all those feel much more natural to me than some of the Peter going to the fair with Harry and they're all having the best time of their lives and we're going to live forever. And,
God, they lay that shit on.
It's a little thick. And
it's
you know,
pretty hokey. But it's hokey in the same, like, heightened comic book way. This entire game, this whole universe is hokey. It's very consistent with this version of New York where, like, an EMT with a stretcher is waiting on every other corner, just waiting for Spider-Man to soar in with somebody who needs help.
Or hokey in the way that in a city of millions of people, there are really only 10 people that know each other. And it's, Mary Jane's working for J. Jonah Jameson, and the mom is dating another father of a superhero, and Miles' uncle is the Prowler. And, in a city this big, there are really like 10 people that work in the same circles.
I mean, it's like a game where you are swinging by the Avengers Tower every half hour without ever seeing hide nor hair of an Avenger, despite the apocalyptic shit that's going on.
They're on another mission. They're out there.
I mean, at one point you land on Doctor Strange's roof, but he's out of town and Wong can only send you a note.
Yeah. I think I think there's is it Miles? One of the games does address like the Avengers that are away on a mission or something like that.
I think it's either first game or Miles. One of them, I think they're like in space or something.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't
like
think
a good, if you want to put them in an inaccessible location where they can't just come back on a whim, that's a good one.
I feel like that would have been a good post-credits thing of like Captain America or Iron Man or somebody coming back and be like, whoa, what happened? Because again, the city is gone.
Yeah, remember there are just rights issues there where they can't show a bunch of stuff.
Yes. And their cleanup crews are trying to wipe that symbiote juice off of everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Did you get your last post-game Peter cell manipulation thing to get that last trophy? If you got the platinum, you did the ED. What is it? The foundation table.
So I was going to ask. That was the one side activity I didn't mop up before I finished the game was the science experiments. Like I did.
You can't.
I only did. So that was my question then because. But I still had like 3 or 4 random ones on the map that I hadn't done.
Ah, okay.
So then when I got to the point where they're like, hey, sent you a package, like, it's the final leg of that. And it's written very much in a post-game way. I was like, did they just write multiple versions of the end of this quest line to account for where you're at in the game? But okay.
Yeah. I had to look it up because I tried to get them all done before I finished. And like, I had to look it up and be like, you can't do this one until you're...
Interesting. So you literally can't do the one, you're talking about the one in the garage?
Yeah.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, I mean the table is you can't find it anywhere. So that you have to do post game, and then some of those Mysteriums are tough, but I'm glad you don't have to get gold in all of them. There's one that I just could not break past, even into silver, where it was like kill a certain amount of enemies in a certain amount of time, and they were all on these platforms, and I just could not get it.
Yeah, I think those were my least favorite of all the side activities. I don't mind a good go fight some guys, like raid a bandit camp type thing, but this was like, these challenges were not that much fun, and also I didn't find the Mysterio stuff to be that compelling.
It wraps up all right.
There's a little bit there. I mean, like, we said it before, like, every side activity chain ends in something interesting in this.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't end with anything interesting. I thought that was one of the least interesting ones.
Like they just from the standpoint of like open world games need filler side missions. They at least did some writing and some art to
challenges, right?
Give you a little reward at the end of all of these. The irony about those challenges is though that like the more powers you have, the later in the game you do them, the easier they are to get gold on. But by the time you have all those powers and get to the end of the game, you kind of don't need the rewards they give you anymore.
Those hero tokens, they do flesh them out a bit. The weird thing, I think you must have had this, you wind up with more points than you have to spend in your tree. Mm-hmm. Or at least I did, and I think everybody must if you're
I don't know. I didn't look.
And what do you think of that bot storyline? I
didn't know what the fuck that was. I have no idea. I have no idea who Miguel is or why that lady looked like she's in a PS2 game. Is that some multiverse?
Okay, so I haven't finished that one yet.
Is that some multiverse shit?
So Miguel, I believe, is that the name of the main character from Across the Spider-Verse?
You mean the Spider-Man 2099?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Miguel O'Hara.
Okay, so that's that part, but I did not know why you opened that portal into a PS2 game where that woman is working at the bar.
I mean, it was cool. I have no idea what it means, but it was a neat visual.
Yeah. Okay. I have absolutely no idea what that actually... One, I haven't seen the ending of that line yet, and two, I don't know what the hell they would be doing there. I'm only vaguely familiar with 2099 stuff. I read a bunch of the first run of that back in the 90s, and then I never read any of it again.
I hope they're not setting up a bunch of multiverse shit. I mean, by the time another Spider-Man game comes out from this studio, it's going to be like pushing the end of the decade, probably. So
it might have been just for funsies.
Yeah. I assume multiverse stuff is going to be pretty out of fashion by then.
Like, they do that, which is kind of fun. You mentioned this last podcast, but now we could talk kind of explicitly about it. I think that's kind of fun. I think the wrap up with the Chameleon, is that who that the Kraven's like brother is?
Half brother, I think.
Okay. I think that's a pretty cool one to wrap up in the side missions. That's the Hunter Blinds? Is that the... No,
that's the chase the robot eagles, the drones.
Oh, yeah. The drones. Okay, the data. They do some pretty fun things. I think that fire... Is that fire one optional?
Fire the flame?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you have to do it.
Okay.
Or who knows? I mean, maybe they don't unlock one of the last story missions until after you've done it. I'm not sure.
Like that,
they do very explicitly point you toward it. After Venom is on the scene and fucking things up, it is pretty conspicuous at some point that they push you toward doing that last flame mission. So it might actually be required. I don't know.
Like they're all while doing some of them get a little tedious in the middle there. I didn't really love chasing the vultures, like the flying through the vulture rings. I thought that was all right, but wasn't my favorite. I think the wrap up for all of them is usually pretty well done.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the side stuff that was in there because it had that narrative, those hooks in it, and they were generally accomplishable. There wasn't like 40,000 of them. There was
nothing is too tedious. Like the rewards, both the upgrade rewards and the story rewards are good enough. Nothing goes on too long. And you can kind of wrap it all up in the course of finishing the game. They did a very good job with side stuff.
Overall, like pretty happy with Spider-Man where it went. I do want some more DLC so I can play in my 8,000 suits I now have unlocked, and see what they do with more powers if they do any more DLC, if they kind of expand that tree out a little bit. Man, that game gets a lot of moves you can do in combat.
Yeah.
And gadgets and stuff.
Last thing real quick before we move on, the other post-credits tease.
Oh, right.
Seems like Dr. Octopus is coming back into it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what and the whole final chapter thing. Alex, do you know anything about the final chapter storyline?
No.
It is a thing. I looked it up. It is definitely a storyline from the comics.
Okay. What is it? I don't know about that either.
Osborn goes to visit Norman or Octavius in the raft at the end. First of all, I don't know if this is canonical from the comics, that there's like some seeming antagonism between them. Like,
well, that's from the first game.
Oh, that was from the first game, wasn't it? Octavius hates Norman Osborn, right?
Mm.
But anyway, Osborn goes to visit Dr. Octopus in the raft, try to get him to say who the Spider-Men are, and he won't, and kind of talk some shit about him. He's like, they ruined my son. Doc Ock is like, good.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
It's like we all have to experience loss, even you, Norman. But he's like writing a book, and Norman's like, what are you writing? And he's like, the final chapter, and then it cuts to black. So I don't know what the implications are from the comics of that.
I didn't know that was like an in-universe thing. I thought it was just
it is.
A metaphor.
There's a whole Wikipedia page about the final chapter, whatever that is.
Huh.
The Gathering of Five and the final chapter.
Huh. I mean, again, spoilers here, if you're listening to this, it's too late, but they off a couple of, Marvel supervillains.
Like a lot of them.
Like you lose, Vulture's presumed dead. They definitely kill Scorpion.
Electro.
Electro's dead.
The guy's name.
They're just gone. Or as far as you know, some of them are dead in this universe.
I mean, look, the thing is, some of those guys have suits, so, there's always a chance. I mean, with Scorpion, there was a particular reason why he was wearing that suit, but it's not impossible to think that they might come up with a future Scorpion, but also Scorpion is, like, middle-tier Spider-Man anyway. Like, he's big in the old stuff, but I don't think I've ever read a Scorpion issue where I was really invested in anything going on with that guy.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. It's them's comic books.
Yeah, they'll find a way to make people that are dead not dead if they have to.
But overall,
new villains.
Overall, pretty good. I look forward to what they're doing. I usually don't come out of these kind of big Sony games ready for the next part of it. Quote unquote big. But I am. Like, I would take some DLC whenever they are ready for it. I don't think I need a big break from this.
Yeah, I continue to be kind of shocked how much I liked this game. Like, if somebody showed up from the future with Spider-Man 3 tomorrow, I would be like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
I'll play that right now.
Yeah, I feel like for as, much was in this game, I was satisfied but wanted more. And I think that's a good place to leave people in a game. Like, not burnt out, which is sometimes where I feel at the end of these. So, good on Spider-Man 2, and I'm not sure. I guess we'll see what happens in the DLC. There's no season pass for this one, so we should mention back, if you're listening to this, it doesn't matter because we're in the spoiler territory, you're not listening anymore, but Alan Wake 2's bigger version does have a season pass, or expansion pass, I think they call it, and there was none of that for Spider-Man 2. in its big edition. You just got some extra costumes. There was no, I would, like you said, Brad, I would be shocked if they didn't explore more content for this game for as well as it is doing and it has done for them. But we'll talk about more Sony and what's going on in their departments in the news. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk more about the video game news. See you on the other side. All right, we are back, and it is time for the news. And if you have been following the gaming industry you just got in over the last couple of months, you know the story that has been happening are massive layoffs kind of across pretty much the entire industry. I don't think really there's any place to be spared at this point.
Like a handful of studios so far have not had layoffs, but I'd say, at this point, when the studio announces them, it's not exactly a shock.
Definitely not. Has Nintendo?
Nintendo, I feel like, does not... One, they don't do a lot of layoffs. Two, I feel like they're often you don't find out about it from them.
They just make people ambassadors.
Yeah, there you go.
Still hard to hear, though, and the latest round of layoffs that was pretty tough to hear was layoffs at the recently acquired Bungie by way of Sony. So this is coming out after, when did they get acquired? Do you guys remember?
Oh, gosh.
Wasn't that long ago.
Year sometime?
I
think
it's been over a year.
So, last summer.
According to the reporting I'm looking at here from Polygon, which is up to date around about a day ago, still unclear how many layoffs in this layoffs, but could be in the tens or dozens of people.
Jason Schreier just tweeted about an hour ago what he's got. About 8% of staff, roughly 100 people is what he's saying.
Okay, that was more than is even in this story. And, it is Sony kind of, I assume pulling back on, it's not clear from the story, but it sounds like the positions that were laid off are people that they might have also have positions within Sony as an organization that's bigger.
I don't think that's universally true, though, because, their composer is now
they laid off Michael Salvatore, which is fucking crazy as somebody who has listened to a whole lot of Destiny music.
Yeah.
After Marty O'Donnell got out of there, Salvatore was, the name on... I mean, actually, I should be fair. They have, 4 composers who were credited on quite a bit of their stuff.
Sure. But it's just that Salvatore is definitely, one of the most... He
was probably the most common name I saw.
Yeah, so that I was going to say, with the exception of some, again, the composer, pretty notable. The reporting on this says spread across communities, social teams, marketing, legal, recruiting, art, human resources, quality assurance, and elsewhere. And it just made me wonder if this is part of Sony kind of looking through these positions and saying, we can cut costs here because we can cover some of these in other places, whether they can or not. I don't know. That's, but I don't know if that's true. That's just me editorializing. This also comes on the heels of Bungie saying there would be no layoffs, right? When this acquisition happened, which is...
Well, and so just to give it, Paul Tossi from, I believe... Forbes had some ongoing reporting for this too, and directly from a source at Bungie, though it is, obviously it's anonymous, but it sounds like the choice for who they are laying off came from Bungie management, not from Sony necessarily. Sony probably told them, hey, you have to lay some people off, but ultimately it was up to Bungie to decide who they were doing that for. And a number of these employees sound like they may have had unvested shares from the Sony purchase, and in fact, because they are being laid off, those shares may in fact be void.
Interesting. Okay.
Which led to at least one former Bungie employee I follow on Twitter saying the same thing happened to him years ago.
Mm-hmm. With shares, share-wise?
Yes, was let go right before his shares vested.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
That's one person. I mean, I can't say how much of a trend that is, but...
and also, benefits, not health insurance. Apparently, health insurance lasts for the duration of whatever the severance is, but, a lot of employee benefits basically are gone as of tomorrow because they are laying people off on literally the day before the end of the month.
What are those? Like, I saw that, but I'm wondering, like, what is parceled out monthly besides health insurance in terms of employee benefits? I'm trying to think what else that would.
I don't know for certain. I don't know what the terms of a Bungie employment contract are, so I can't say for certain.
Yeah, I mean, that could range from anywhere from, gym membership comps to...
Yeah, that was...
it could be, or more serious things, like, sometimes healthcare support is, or not healthcare in the medical sense, like mental health care.
Yeah. Stuff that isn't specifically just your health insurance.
Right. Like, you can get... We partner with these other people to provide this benefit. There's childcare can also be considered a benefit in some places, too. There's a lot of stuff that can really affect people, so... Though there are a lot of layoffs, it's never, I feel like they don't become routine no matter where they are. And that also led to reporting that, Marathon, which is Bungie's kind of more nebulous project, and also its next Destiny 2 expansion, which is the weird shape. What is the name of that one?
The Final Shape.
Final Shape will be experiencing delays.
Yeah, did I understand correctly? I think those had already been delayed internally. This just kind of got out as part of this. If that was the case, I believe is what it was.
So it's delayed to 2025.
Marathon, what is it? I think Marathon got pushed a year and Destiny expansion got pushed like 4 or 5 months.
Yes, I believe that is right. So, I don't know. There's obviously some trouble within Bungie. Least of which is a delay, and the most severe is they're cutting staff.
The rest of I'll just read the rest of Schreier's tweet. He said, Bungie laid off about 8% of staff Monday, or around 100 people. 2 weeks ago, staff were told they were projected to miss revenue targets by 45%.
Wow.
Employees were galvanized to get things on track, then came surprise layoffs. I don't know how you're supposed to get things on track.
Yeah.
By a 45% shortfall in 2 weeks, but whatever. It seems unclear where the cuts actually came from, if Sony corporate mandated the cuts or not.
Mm-hmm.
Or if this was entirely within Bungie, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from this reporting so far. It sounds like more. You said that just went out about an hour ago as of the time of this recording, so it sounds like more reporting coming out on the cuts over at Bungie. Obviously, it might sound hollow because we say it every time, but I think we do mean it when we say hopefully everybody finds some kind of meaningful employment there, but there's a lot of layoffs. It's the
this much contraction at this point. Like, it's hard to even imagine. It's like, oh, well, you just go find another opening. It's like, what other opening?
Right.
There's no... On top of all these layoffs, the number of openings at studios that have not done layoffs is still not that high.
Yep. And, again... I don't want to beat this drum again, but sometimes with consolidation, you wind up in situations where what used to be individual jobs and teams get consolidated into one group. Like, again, if you have a PR department at Sony, I don't know if they might, but you might not necessarily need a PR department at Bungie, or that's how they view it. So we will see as things move on. There is another acquisition story here, or an intended acquisition story here, and that is Digital Eclipse, where it looks like Atari is kind of setting up to acquire Digital Eclipse, according to the story on Video Game Chronicle. Yeah,
they have. Digital Eclipse has a FAQ up about it's like, what does this mean for us?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the story both came out of nowhere this morning and also is like completely unsurprising. At the same time, because who else would buy Digital Eclipse at this point? Atari seems to be repositioning itself as some kind of curator of video game nostalgia. It seems like not necessarily just their own nostalgia, but also like, they bought Night Dive earlier this year, who's out there remastering every fucking thing left and right.
And I guess the big question is, or if you've been following Digital Eclipse and their was it Gold Games?
The Gold Master Series.
Gold Master Series. We've been following that with Karateka, with their Atari stuff and the like. it seems like Atari is saying, no, we want them to continue that with outside IPs. Like it's not just Atari-based stuff. We want to continue that. We think it's great, and we want to see more of that and encourage that. So
yeah, that's the literal second question on this FAQ. Is Digital Eclipse only allowed to work on Atari properties now? It is business as usual at Digital Eclipse, like they say flat out. We still have the freedom to seek out projects with other parties, et cetera,
which is great.
Yeah, like this has kind of been my question about like Atari 50, and like Atari clearly has money to throw around, but like the Karateka thing maybe is a little more grassroots. Like, I bet these Gold Master games are like, I don't know how much they sell, but I bet that it's like I bet it's kind of a hard sell to money people in some cases. Of like, this is clearly a passion project. This is like important historical work. Is it going to make you a 10x return on investments?
Right.
Possibly not. You know what I mean? So like, who knows with acquisitions, they certainly go bad more often than not, but this seems like possibly a way to get more of those made without as much concern about them having to make a shitload of money.
I hope so. I mean, again, I don't know what level we should be trusting the current iteration of Atari. Like, does it seem better?
Fair point.
Is it better than like what it was like 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Definitely seems that way, but let's be real, they did still have a bunch of Web3 stuff on their website as recently as like the last time I looked.
It's such a weird company. I mean, they did that weird ass hotel stuff and the weird merch, and the like weird NFT stuff, and they made that what do they call it? It's just called the VCS, right? That little set-top box that looks like a 2600 a few years ago that I'm still mad I didn't get on clearance when it was $99. But then they made Atari 50, like that guy Wade Rosen, who is the CEO now, like seems to truly actually care about the legacy of the company. And like Atari 50 is, I am convinced, not a product you can make if you're all bad.
Yeah, I would hope not. But again, my trust level is just very low in general for these sorts of things these days, and Atari does not fill me with hope in these sorts of regards. But I also feel like if any company was gonna take a stab at just letting Digital Eclipse keep doing the kinds of things they're doing, I could maybe see Microsoft also trying something like that. But like, I think ultimately, like, this is probably an okay landing spot. I hope it is.
Yeah. So I just looked this up. I did not realize. I guess Wade Rosen only took over as CEO in April 2021.
It hasn't been that long, no.
Yeah, so like a lot of that, the NFT and hotel shit was before the pandemic started, like 2019-ish.
Yeah.
First time I even heard about it or saw him was on that Atari 50.
Yeah, like he seems to care. That's my uninformed and just gut feeling. Yeah, Microsoft, yes, is another one. I think I've said before, I hoped that especially as they take possession of all this classic Activision IP that they would start throwing, and they've got all this Bethesda stuff, they would start throwing money at projects like this. They still could, seems like. I guess this deal does not prevent that from happening.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Digital Eclipse and Mike Micah and that team as they kind of, as this goes forward. It hasn't happened quite yet. It sounds like it is in the process of happening. And it's, I think it was $20 million for the Digital Eclipse studio. I don't know what comes with that deal either. Some of the details are not in there, whether they get the whole catalog of stuff they're getting. Obviously, they want to keep doing that games with gold stuff. Maybe they'll work with Night Dive.
Gold Master. It's not games with gold. Sorry. That's something else.
Gold Master series. Gaming with gold. Microsoft buying Atari. Look out.
Whoa.
I don't know. Like, if you asked me how much Atari was worth,
$100 in a song.
I don't know if I would put it that high. I guess if you have the brand is probably still pretty valuable. Like Atari
as a thing you can put on t-shirts and merch. Yes.
Yeah. And yes. Right.
Exactly. As a software developer, not so much.
But going back to the Night Dive stuff, I wonder if Night Dive would do, if you wind up doing that Gold Master series for more modern stuff, you know how they sometimes include modernized version of games? I wonder if some of that Night Dive stuff would wind up in those catalogs, because they seem, pretty knowledgeable about taking old games and making them look fresh.
Night Dive has been doing some pretty solid work. Like any potential synergy between them and Digital Eclipse could be cool.
Also, Digital Eclipse, for those who don't know, weird history in terms of founding and Backbone and Other Ocean and all of that stuff.
Foundation 9, all that stuff goes back.
It's weird.
5 years or more.
Weird but fascinating.
30 years?
But it sounds like this is Digital Eclipse. None of that other stuff. All right, speaking of Microsoft, I feel like doing a very unmodern Microsoft thing, or maybe the most Microsoft thing. I'm not sure. Yeah. Alex, I thought it had me thinking about Rock Band and Guitar Hero and kind of Microsoft locking down their wireless protocol for things. But this story about Microsoft basically killing off unauthorized, unofficial Xbox accessories, where I guess if you plug something in, you will get an error code, which then says you have 2 weeks before your accessory gets banned. Or does your account get banned? Let me double check the wording on this.
Oh, I think it's just the accessory stopped working.
Accessory stopped working. You'll have 2 weeks to use the accessory, after which time it will be blocked from use on the console. Yeah,
according to Windows Central, I think is who broke this. They've got a couple updates on their story here. November 12th is the deadline, after which unauthorized third-party stuff will not work anymore.
That's wild.
This I hate. I don't want to be too in the weeds here, because I'm not going to stand here and tell you. I don't know. I imagine Nintendo probably has similar policies, and I imagine I don't even know what's the current state of using unauthorized, devices on a Sony console are. So I can't say definitively that they're doing a better job, but Microsoft has always been extremely weird about their wireless protocol stuff and accessories and people using their tech. And I hate it. I've always hated it. I've always thought it was super weird and annoying that they do this. I think the thing that makes this a little weirder is that there are a lot of accessibility oriented accessories that are not necessarily the ones that Microsoft developed that people were using, I think, before they kind of went in on the accessibility stuff. And I'm wondering if those things are going to end up in that bucket now.
It seems like if it's unofficial or,
Yeah, the big one that came to mind for me, and also the one I saw the most outcry around, is the Brick Gaming joystick adapters. It's basically just a little USB dongle that lets you use other joysticks with the Xbox. Jason swore by those at Giant Bomb when we were there.
Oh, really? Okay.
And those Brook straight up put a statement out about this and how much it sucks for them. And the FGC is definitely not happy about this move at all for breaking stick compatibility like that.
I just think it's such a dumb, short-sighted move. I know why they're doing it. It is a pointless move in the grand scheme of things.
What Windows Central says is happening is that they are going to start loosening restrictions on wireless third-party controllers. They're going to start letting third parties make wireless accessories finally, and that this is part of that.
Okay. I mean, that's fine, but they're also leaving a bunch of people who already have stuff that they bought kind of in the lurch here.
But yeah, it sucks for people that have stuff that was working that is suddenly not going to work anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it's not on Microsoft to say that, you bought a thing that wasn't official and we never guaranteed that we'd keep it. You're right, you didn't, but it's a thing where it's it just feels like this move to restriction is just not... It's not gamer friendly.
Which I feel like was where Microsoft has been really trying to position itself.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from fighting game community stuff, accessibility stuff, which I hadn't even thought about, Alex, which is a great point. Racing wheel stuff also becomes a nightmare, especially if you're trying to go between PlayStation and Xbox. And, that stuff's really expensive and you don't want to have to buy separate ones. And Microsoft... What is the current state? Do you guys know what the current state for Bluetooth controllers on an Xbox? Is it just not supported?
Yeah, you can't use Bluetooth.
You can't. Can you use headsets?
I think that also uses their own protocol, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. That stuff becomes a pain in the ass. That's plain and simple. It's it's super expensive to buy, and one that supports the trinity of platforms that you want. In my case, which would be PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, becomes a little harder.
Yeah.
To do. And, with the third-party apps out there that were unofficial that tried to get around that, it was somewhat achievable. But, I think their stated purpose here is maybe to block exploits and plugging unauthorized USB things into your console. I don't really know, but it does seem like, I think you put it best, Alex, not a gamer friendly.
No. And considering how much they like to cultivate that image, it's just one of those things that kind of stands out of like, okay, well, you're saying one thing, but you're kind of doing another.
Yeah. And aside from, I guess, this isn't my world, so I don't know. Aside from possible people doing illicit things, maybe hacking or injecting things, they can't be losing a lot of market share in terms of controllers and stuff, right?
I can't imagine.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Like, I mean, a lot of people like the Xbox controller. Maybe the fighting sticks? I really don't know. It's not my world.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, accessories are definitely a high margin business, so it's certainly something they want to continue making a lot of money on, but I don't know that these things are truly threatening that revenue.
And I guess let me clarify in that I said third party, unlicensed third party. There's plenty of third party stuff that is licensed that will continue to work. So it's stuff from Razer or Logitech and all those things that are licensed third parties will work. Unlicensed third party stuff.
This Windows Central story says Microsoft previously had no easy path for third party manufacturers to get wirelessness into their controllers, with only headsets getting approval via a special Microsoft security chip. Now we're hearing that Microsoft does have an approval process for official third-party wireless controllers, and this new restriction may be a result of new security measures to put restrictions on inputs that could circumvent play or inject unfair advantages.
Okay. No NES Max is what you're saying.
Man, fuck.
Can't get my
I had a Max.
My Game Shark is useless.
I had a Max. Let's not get started on the Max.
Okay.
Max or an Advantage? Which one did you have?
I had a Max. I
had an Advantage.
I was very jealous of my friends who had the Advantage.
The Max maybe is one of the worst D-pads.
It's so weird. What the fuck is that thing?
The disc?
Yeah. I never used the disc just because you could press the ring around it. I just used that.
Is that just due to like, what was that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's like it's interesting looking into the early days of Nintendo with that stuff. Like, I just found out fairly recently that the Advantage was actually made by ASCII.
Oh.
Like ASCIIware made the Advantage and Nintendo just branded it back then.
I was going to say, was there something with the copyright of the D-pad for the Max? But then I thought maybe Nintendo wouldn't be infringing on its own copyright. But if somebody else made the Max.
Yeah, I don't know who made the Max. Let me see.
Demon Spawn.
I know. I don't see who made the Max. Might have been Nintendo.
Okay. I had a Max also, and I thought that thing was kind of trash.
It was bizarre.
That's Atari, Microsoft, Bungie. We probably should have mentioned this during the Alan Wake talk, but there was a little bit more news about Control 2 and what's going on in Max Payne world with their remake. And basically, the short of it is they're moving forward. Like the progress is being made. What is the name of their special project? Condor?
Yeah, isn't that the multiplayer control game?
They say this was kind of in their investors talk. Condor, a cooperative multiplayer game, has progressed from the proof of concept to the production readiness stage. We have acquired valuable insights into developing service-based games and are now in a better position to create a game players can engage with for years.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Control 2 continues in the proof of concept stage.
Yes. Like, not too much
progress here. They do say we will continue at this stage for the next few quarters, is what they say about Control 2. So, few quarters could mean, I don't know, maybe they go into production on Control 2 like a year from now? Like full production? Who knows? Let's say Control 2 is like 3 years out or more.
And then the remakes, basically, Sam Lake just saying, I don't know, it's really big. That's a big one. These are old games.
They're very old.
Bringing them up to modern standards and combining them into one, you can see that it's a big, big project.
Yeah. I think they also probably, it's one of those things where it's like they themselves have not touched Max Payne in a very long time. And I imagine that if they're going to do this, they want to do it in the most like grandiose, we're back motherfuckers kind of way. So I can understand taking your time with that.
Sounds like that one is moving along pretty well. They say we are at the quote production readiness stage, which sounds like they've probably got like design locked and are ready to get going on making the thing.
So I assume they have a deal with Rockstar for that, right?
I'm sure I knew about this at some point and completely forgot about it. When did this get announced?
I don't even remember. I like when it came up, I was like, wait, are they doing that? And then I remembered, oh, right, they did announce that at some point, but I could not remember where.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to find like all the Google results are dominated by this news. I'm trying to find like...
Well, that interview, the thing I mentioned about Sam Lake, that was an interview with Sam Lake from Video Game Chronicles previously. That ran, let me see if I can find it back in there. Oy, that's from September.
April 2022 is when they announced this remake of Max Payne 1 and 2.
Dang.
Is that also when they announced Condor? That might be right.
Condor and then Vanguard.
None of this is familiar to me.
Remedy got a lot going on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Control 2, Control multiplayer thing, Max Payne remake. Alan Wake just came out.
Vanguard's the one that nobody knows anything about, right? That's just nebulous.
Is that a totally other project?
That's in the statement. They say, in codename Vanguard, we are defining the next stages of the project with our publishing partner. At the same time, the project is aiming towards completing the proof of concept stage by end of next year. Obviously, this is all investor stuff. They're just wondering what's on the books here. But interesting nonetheless on the back of Alan Wake 2 coming out and me personally enjoying it so far.
Apparently,
and then,
right, I forgot I just saw this headline going around last night. Apparently, Sam Lake told GQ he has an idea for a, quote, crazy, huge budget, dark gothic fantasy.
Is that not Alan Wake? Is Alan Wake dark gothic?
Not that gothic.
No, I guess it's more noir.
Yeah, I think fantasy doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Yeah.
I would absolutely see what kind of fantasy game Sam Lake would make.
Elden Ring, but with Sam Lake. Finally.
Sure.
Speaking of weird online service games, this one is just kind of more of a public service announcement, but in case you missed it, Ubisoft, never one to be left out from gaming news, are going to be shutting down or closing some online services for some, let's just say, older games here.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to mean multiplayer, linking your accounts, getting your, whatever they call Uplay points now, Ubisoft Connect rewards, whatever it is.
What have you.
But the games they have on their list for services that are ending: Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed Liberation HD, Assassin's Creed Revelations, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, Heroes of Might and Magic 6, NCSI, over on the PC, Splinter Cell Conviction, Ruse. Do I remember what Ruse is?
I do not.
What's Ruse? RUSE, and then Trials Evolution.
It's like military strategy game.
Super don't remember that.
No. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. That's how it goes now, right? You can't stay connected forever.
Kind of amazed Assassin's Creed 2 online stuff was still running.
Yeah, I wonder what, aside from like tying into the, I'll just call it Uplay Forever, but aside from tying into that, what was going on online? Was that did they have stuff where you were sending out assassins with other people?
No, Brotherhood was the first game where you sent people on missions, right?
I thought so.
I think that's right.
And I think Brotherhood was the first one with active multiplayer.
Okay, so maybe the Assassin's Creed 2 is just linking to accounts and stuff like that. That's going to do it for the news, unless you guys have anything else that has popped up. That's the news for this week. Some sad, some we'll see, some, and the Remedy stuff sounds like they're doing all right. I don't know. Seems like if you got that many irons in the fire, hopefully something's doing okay for you.
I was gobsmacked when I woke up Thursday morning and saw the Alan Wake reviews. I said it when I went to that event. I was like, this looks really ambitious. This looks super interesting. But you don't always expect something like that is going to land or like pull together, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or like fulfill its ambitions. So like, just like kind of 9s and 10s almost across the board with a few exceptions was like, holy shit. Like, good for them.
Remedy feels like one of those studios, pre-Control Remedy felt like it was on the bubble, you know? Like, it seems like Control kind of put them back on a healthier path. I don't know what's going on internally, but...
Yeah, did you guys play Quantum Break? I never did.
Yes, I played through all of it. Yeah. It's not so good.
Yeah, like I had people after Quantum... Like, Alan Wake was good, but like, you know, maybe not all the way there. And then they made Quantum Break after that. And that one also didn't hit super hard, so...
If the extent of their in-universe referencing of things related to Quantum Break is just casting Sean Ashmore and more stuff, I'm fine with that. I don't think they ever really need to go back to that thing. It was never that interesting.
Yeah, well, and Microsoft owns it, so
yeah,
that would be tough anyway, but...
I wonder how much money they got from that Crossfire stuff. Whatever the single-player stuff they had done for that.
That felt like very mercenary work.
Yeah, I wonder if they're like, there's a special thanks in Alan Wake 2 to Smilegate for letting us do that Crossfire work. I have no idea.
Yeah, but like Control just came roaring out of the gate so hard, you know, it's like, oh my God, they're back.
And unique, you know,
Yeah, they're also like, are they maybe the biggest independent developer at this point that's still doing all their own tech?
Jeez.
Probably.
IO.
They might be bigger than IO.
Yeah, I would guess they're bigger than IO, probably.
That's the only other one I could think of.
Yeah. Like Bungie would have been, but Bungie's not independent anymore. My friend Adam over at PC World just did an interview with the Remedy guys about their tech specifically, because they have the Northlight engine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They actually touched on that in that interview, like all these other projects they have, you know, it's like they have a Northlight team that makes the engine, right? But then they're trying to service, you know, 4 different games or something at the same time. Anyway.
Is Crytek owned by anybody at this point?
God. What happened with them?
Because they're, Hunt Showdown is that's them, right?
Yes, that's Crytek.
That's
they're still privately owned.
There you go. I don't know how big Crytek is, but CryEngine's still out there screaming. Trying to find if they've made something else.
Don't worry, Crysis 4 is on the horizon, so...
Can they make a Crysis 4? Do they own Crysis?
They are making a Crysis 4, or at least have announced one.
Oh, have they?
Yes.
Oh, man.
They've announced it last year.
Maximum Armor, indeed.
Whether that ever actually comes out or not, I could not tell you.
All right. That's going to do it for the news. We've got an email address here. It is podcast@nextlander.com. Podcast@nextlander.com. One more time, please. Thank you. Podcast@nextlander.com. Brad Shoemaker in the big old candy bucket of emails this week. Pull us out the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of emails.
All right. One email.
Because
my voice is going again. Also, all the other emails have razor blades in them.
Great. Check these emails for razor blades.
Max from Leon. How long do you think Insomniac can keep making Spider-Man games set in the New York City area? They've sure expanded the map for 2, but when do you think it becomes too repetitive? Do you see them ever trying something new with the franchise, or is Spider-Man just too attached to New York City? What would you want as a new setting? A new city, if another one can work, or a totally fictional environment?
The fuck are you talking about? There's 2 whole boroughs they haven't even done yet. Okay, 1 whole borough and an island that you should leave immediately.
Are they just going to make a Spider-Man 3 and like the Bronx is just magically attached now?
Finally, you can go to Yonkers.
The Bronx, and then all of a sudden Staten Island appears like Atlantis out of from the depths.
It rises out of the ocean, and Namor and his army of aqua cops come out.
Just hey.
I'm of 2 minds about this. One, I'm a New York homer. I'm not from here, but I live there long enough that I really do love that city, and swinging around in the city is still a lot of fun to me. I think you could probably wring at least one more game out of this exact city map with greater expansion to it. Maybe spend a little more time in New Jersey, what have you. But there's other things they can do. Like they could, if they're fucking around with 2099 stuff, you could just do Spider-Man 2099. Like you could turn that into a game and just do future New York.
Here's my 2 cents on it is, by the time we're done with this round of Spider-Man tech, The tech will have evolved, will be on whatever the next generation is, and they will do New York City again. And it'll be bigger and faster. Right. It'll be like, maybe the hook will be it's a 1-to-1 New York City scale size because now the traversal is so fast or whatever you need to do. And we'll be back to just Manhattan as an island that they'll do. I think New York will, until we get exact scale replica of New York, I think we're going to stick around in New York is my 2 cents.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever get there though. I think that's more for gameplay reasons and maybe also art generation.
It's the moving around has gotten so fast. You're right. I mean, nobody really wants to swing for 20 minutes from, Battery Park up to Columbia or something. Like that's a long time in a real size city, but that's probably where stuff is headed.
Yeah.
If they really want, though, Spider-Man in LA is kind of a fun concept. Spider-Man in like Houston could be kind of weird and fun.
Okay, look, we know what the problem is, right? It's not the size of the city; it's the verticality of the city.
1,000%. It's you need a bunch of tall buildings in a compact space.
So
Hong
Kong.
Spider-Man in LA is just driving around everywhere. Spider-Man in Hong Kong, that could work.
That's kind of the thing I was waiting to say was like, I think you have to do a city for gameplay reasons, because you need something to attach webs to.
Mm-hmm.
And they do, like they could be as like loose as they wanted with this and just let you swing in midair. Didn't like the older Spider-Man games like not give a shit? And just
they would just invent things that you were swinging off of. Absolutely.
Like you could just swing no matter what was like actually physically over you. But this game, these games actually like do care. Is there something there for you to attach a web to?
I don't know much about the 2099 stuff or future Spider-Man stuff, but Spider-Man being able to attach to like flying cars and stuff could be pretty fun. If you're swinging around, that could be. I don't know if there are 20 flying cars in 2099, but future stuff could be fun.
I'm just thinking, like, what is actually in 2099? If I go look through my comic collection, I can probably find the couple of issues that I still have of the original Spider-Man 2099 run. But I remember it being, like, all that 2099 stuff being, like, here are new people that are inhabiting the personalities of these, well-known Marvel characters, like Spider-Man, the Punisher. There were a couple of other ones, too. And the cities were very Blade Runner-y, like that kind of future
flying
city.
Like dark, gritty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dark, gritty, but also like a lot of like flying tech and, crazy tech.
Give me Spider-Man Noir. Give me Spider-Ham. Let's do it.
Dude, if they just made a fucking Spider-Ham game, I would be all over that shit. All over it.
That's my Spider-Man take. All right. That's the emails for this week. Podcast at nextlander.com. Watchcast news. We have finished up our October Watchcast with Train to Busan, which is up now currently. I think we talked a little bit about it on the Ramblecast and maybe even at the beginning of this show. It's been a minute. But you can check all of those out at patreon.com/Nextlander. We're going to have a week off and then we're going to come back with Alex.
Ninja-sploitation. We're having a turkey month is what we're having. We are going to watch some deliciously bad films over the course of November, and we are very specifically digging into the 1980s ninja boom and some of the more notoriously ridiculous films of that era, including Ninja Terminator, New York Ninja, and Miami Connection.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good time.
Look for that schedule coming up soon. On the Patreon. And I read just this morning that at least when I read, who knows, but SAG was back in talks with the studios. I don't know if negotiations at the time of this recording have fallen out or gone through, but
they're ongoing is all I know.
Ongoing. So maybe the fate of Coop someday I will find out what happened to old Cooper. You can find all that stuff again at patreon.com/Nextlander. We got a Ramblecast. We'll have Never Been a Better Podcast with old Beastcast crew coming through there. A bunch of fun stuff. Find a tier that fits your lifestyle. There is one tier there, though, that gets their names read on this here show, and I am going to read those names for you today. I've mixed up the order on these, so get ready. If you haven't been paying attention, pay attention to this one.
Wow.
Yeah, get ready. Starting with, thus the Heebies were Jeebies. For now, Ryan Waterman, Mega Brains, RRE, Brad's Waist Length Hoodoo Voodoo, Deidre wishes Liz, the mod, a happy engagement, Infelicitus Rips, Brian Lucier, Vornak, Matt Clements Jr., David Campos, Kelly F., Raz Grizz Boo, Alex Wu, Evan Cook, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Sean Miller, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Robert, Play Gabriel Knight 3, cowards, Fisher, John McInnes, Peter Reardon, Thomas Lynn, Jad Rita, Andrew Jackson, Randy Duax, Andrew Tiebkin, It's Me JP, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Tyler Treese, Gary Pejke, Brian Murphy, Statics, $, Edward Chick, and Matthew Herrig. Man, when you mix up the order like that, it's like trying to read the alphabet backwards. Really messes with your head a little bit. Thanks to our mysterious benefactors, and thanks to everyone who has supported us. Thanks. We couldn't do it without you. We know that out there in the wilds of the real world, things are economically weird right now. So we do appreciate your support. We wouldn't be here without your generosity, your support, your dedication. You're watching our things. You're listening to our things. So thanks again. Speaking of things that you can watch, listen to, and check out, we are moving forward, I would say, at a pace in Remnant 2. Mm-hmm. I feel like our nonstop crew here is, I don't know, Brad, what do you think? You're more familiar with Remnant 2. We've got this boss of this world coming up, and then what? Another world?
Just the last world, I believe. We fight the boss of where we're at and then go to the end game world.
Man.
If I'm not mistaken.
Ooh. I'm going to send you some tips somebody sent me about the end game boss. Mainly, though, they said, careful upgrading all your weapons before that, because the boss will basically imprint to the level that you're at when you kind of take on the boss.
Good to know.
And so that if you level up after you've initiated the boss, the level of the boss will stay the same. Does that make sense?
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yes,
I thought that was a really good tip. Really good tip. Oh, my dog is whining at the steps. My family must have passed through on their Halloween shenanigans.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. Can you
I can hear him?
Oh my gosh. Kirby, it's okay. I'll be right up, bud.
Everything's okay, dude.
It's all going to be okay. We're wrapping up the podcast right now.
Everything's going to be fine.
You can check that out. We're going to have a grab bag. We're going to have a Friday stream. Alex, you're going to be out traveling. Brad and I are going to be holding it down. I should mention, we didn't mention this at the top, but we were recording this, because it's Halloween, on a Tuesday. So if some crazy news breaks over on Wednesday, not our fault. We recorded it already. We did it already. It's done. Let me go get to my dog and let you guys get back to Halloween shenanigans. Everybody, I hope you're having a safe and wonderful time out there. Thank you, Alex Navarro.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad Shoemaker. Mm-hmm. And we'll be back next week.